So as far as the formatting goes, for the table itself, we want the text in the table to be left aligned. For the font, we want Callisto MT. Color should be black. We do want a border around the outside. And we're going to choose dark green because we kind of went with that dark green color for the title. And then we are going to specify a light green border on the right and on the bottom. So let's do that first. Okay, and this particular page has an internal style sheet, if you remember. So right above the closing style is where we're going to put the opening table. And let's see, we've got text align left, font family, and we'll put in double quotes, Callisto MT. And color black, border, we'll make that 10 pixels. Our style is going to be groove, and dark green is our color. And then we want the border on the right to be 2 pixels, solid, and light green. And we want the same for the border on the bottom. 2 pixels, solid, light green. And let's save that. And let's take a look. Okay, so you should notice that now the headings are left aligned with everything else. And we have that groove border on the left and the top, but on the right and the bottom, we have a much thinner border and it's light green. Okay, so far so good. Also should notice that the font changed. Now, coming back in here for the header, and that is the table header, the TH, that is the very first line. Remember, so that is year, movie, and stars, our headings. We want those formatted a little different. So we're going to add TH. And what we would like is a background color to set it off a little better. And we're going to make the background color dark green. And then the font color, we're going to make white. And we're still going to want the text align to be left. All right, so let's save this. And we're going to come out here and reload it. Now watch the first line because that is what we're changing. Now for the remaining lines, okay, all of our TDs, we want a border on the bottom and a border on the right. Very similar to what we did to the outside of the table because we want the 2 pixel solid and we're going to choose green instead of light green. Okay, so let's go back in here. So at the very bottom, we're going to put in our TD. And I'm going to go ahead and copy border right and border bottom because what we're doing is very similar. The difference is instead of light green, we're just doing green. So I'm going to get rid of the light. Okay, and that's exactly what we want. So let's save this. And let's take a look. There we go. So we have the border on the bottom and on the right of every TD tag. Okay? And again, the reason this table is centered is because of the table center CSS. Now, we aren't done with this yet, okay? But we have to kind of wait till we go through the next section because what's coming next is kind of combining cells in the table. So we're going to be combining 1954 and the cell below it, rear window, and the cell below that. Okay, but we have to wait until we get into spanning for that. What we can do right now is modify our recipe just a little bit more. So for the recipe, what we want is we actually want prep time, cook time, and total time in a little table. And then we want to put a border at the top of the table and at the bottom of the table. And it'll just offset it a little bit, and it'll make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is adjusting our code just a little bit. So let's go back into VS Code, and we're going to go over into our lemon cream cheese crumb cake. And the section that we are going to be changing is this section. Okay, that's where the text is located. Actually, it's not there. It's down here. I lied. It's right below the aside. Okay, so we aren't going to change the aside. We're changing what is below. So let us add the table tag. We got style equals. And we don't want this to span the page, right? Because it's next to a side. And by default, tables span the page. So let's make the width 50%. Okay, if you remember, the aside was 30%. So there's still plenty of room for the aside. And so we've got the width at 50%, semicolon. Let's change the alignment of the text to center. And then for the table itself, we're going to put a bottom border, so border dash bottom, that is thin, solid, and black. And then we're going to do a border dash top that is thin, oops, no comma, solid, and black. Okay, so that is our opening table. Now let's put a closing table below. And then what we basically want are 2 rows. We're going to put our headings, which are prep time, cook time, and total time, in the heading row. And then for the detail, which is the number of minutes, that'll be in the second row. So we need 2 rows. So we've got a first row. And within that row, we have 3 columns. Okay, so let's go ahead and create those columns. This is a heading row, so we're using TH for the columns. We said we wanted 3 of them. So I'm going to copy and paste. All right, that's our first row. Now we got a second row. And in the second row, we also need 3 columns. And this is detail information. And let me copy paste those as well. All right, so I actually don't like to do a lot of typing, so I'm going to highlight. And you should be able to drag and drop this. So I'm just kind of highlighting the text for the headings, and I'm including the colon, and I'm left dragging it. And I'm placing the insertion mark right between the opening and the closing. I'm going to do the same thing for the minutes. Oh, I knew that was going to happen sooner or later. Let me adjust. All right, so I think those look good. Now let me get rid of these paragraph tags because we don't need them anymore. Right, and let me save. And then we're going to reload. Okay, so you can see what that looks like. And actually the defaults look fine. So the default for the heading you can see is to make it bold. And the reason it's center aligned and has the top and bottom borders because that's what we specified when we created the table. Okay, so when we created the table, we set it 50% wide. We wanted the text centered. We wanted the thin top and thin bottom borders. Okay, so pretty much our table is done. And in fact, this whole crumb cake page is now complete. Okay, so what we're going to do is close out of that and close out of the CSS.